if I said perception is often propositional or quasi-propositional in character, you would want to reject that.
No, on the contrary. I say, if I perceive that something is the case, then of course I believe that it's the case.
Right, of course.
So that's propositional as can be.
Okay.
There isn't something propositional before that, so to speak.
No, okay. I think we're not in disagreement. Anyway, so that was a digression, really. On this business about the practice of giving reasons for and against, I'd just like to say this is not a... Well, you sometimes rather cautiously indicated your agreement with Quine's famous thesis of indeterminacy of translation, though so far as I know you've never done anything much with it.
I don't think there's much to do with it. I think it's a trivial doctrine.
I see. Well, at any rate, the arguments as given by Quine for it rest solely on constraints on translation that were arrived at by a process of peering at people and seeing what stimulations they receive and what they are sent to. And it pays no attention to, of course, because it's in this fantasy situation of the so-called linguist in his bush hat peering through the undergrowth of these natives. It pays no attention to something which you have to learn a great deal more of the language even to begin to recognize, namely the giving of grounds or reasons for and against. And it seems to me if you allow those to impose constraints, the argument for the indeterminacy is very much weakened.
It is. As I see it anyway, the main place that it weakens it is with respect to the interpretation, as I would say, rather than translation, the interpretation of anything that's even slightly theoretical in character. Because our only clue to how to interpret those terms is their relations of evidential support with each other and with the more directly observational beliefs that we have. And without any clue to that, I see. I mean, he would be as much of an indeterminist as Quine is. And his indeterminacy mainly has to do with the more theoretical.
It came to. At first it looked much more all-encompassing.
Yes, no, I'm completely in agreement. I don't have anywhere near as much indeterminacy in my views. Neither do I think that the only logical constants that we can get a grip on are the pure sentential connectives. That seems to be equally wrong. We've got just as good a grip on quantificational relations. No, I think there are two kinds of indeterminacy, neither of which seems to me to be of any great importance. One is any method, I would say, and here I'm sort of interpreting Quine in my own way, say, our grip on what people mean by what they say depends upon our having some grip on what they believe and what they want. And there are cases, maybe quite a lot, where we can accommodate all the facts equally well by supposing that they mean the same thing we do by a certain word but believe something different. Or accommodated by saying, no, they just simply mean something different by this word. And there's no point in trying to decide which of those is right, because nothing is going to resolve it necessarily. I mean, of course, in some cases you can resolve it. So that's one kind of indeterminacy, which seems to be relatively trivial. And the other form, it just has to do with the internal workings of our semantics, that what Quine calls inscrutability of reference.
Yes.
And there, although my skepticism doesn't reach quite to the extremes that his does, nevertheless, I think we can readjust the way in which we map the parts of sentences onto objects in a completely systematic way, where it will make absolutely no difference to how we understand somebody. And I think of that as being exactly as significant as the fact that we can measure temperature in centigrade or Fahrenheit, which is of no interest whatsoever. So it's harmless. But it does carry a certain lesson, and that is our understanding of language depends completely on our understanding of sentences. And how you break up the interior is tested. I mean, it's right or wrong only in what it delivers on the level of sentences. So I think of grammar, syntax, semantics, and all of that as being some workable account of how sentences are related to each other, and of course of how they're related to the world. But we can keep track of those things in different ways.
No. Well, I don't want to pursue this. I'm not quite sure that I agree with this last remark to the, as far as you wanted to push it, because it isn't just a theorist's business to split sentences up into words and explain how they... It's part of how we ourselves understand what people say.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, well, let's not pursue that further. I'd like to get on to something different. Perhaps I'll ask you this. We've talked about the notion of truth and whether how one comes by it, or whether one has to have it in advance or what. But what about falsity? How does one come upon the notion of falsity?
I think we come upon both of them at the same time.
I thought you might think that.
But I think you can say that without deciding whether in your semantics you want to say there are certain sentences which might be true, they might be false, and they might be neither.
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
Yes. No, I don't think to say that we understand the notion of falsity at the same time that we understand the notion of truth, that in itself indicates that there mightn't be sentences whose truth conditions we understand, but they might not be either true or false.
That's a hard saying, if I may say so. I mean...
Okay.
Well, saying that they go together usually goes with thinking must be one or the other, or it's the other just in case it's not the one, and the notion of negation is thereby taken as primitive or something. If there are sentences whose truth conditions and falsity conditions are such that they might neither be satisfied, then it seems to me one must have a notion of falsity which no doubt excludes truth, but is must be given separately.